It is hello friends. So in the previous classes we have discussed the general characteristic of cycas, classification, and the morphology and anatomy of the cycas we have studied. That continue with the another concept of that is the reproductive characteristics. So usually the cycas reproduces by both vegetative and as well as sexual mode of reproduction. The vegetatively by just by the budding process. So usually the vegetative reproduction takes place, and especially in the base of the plant it will help for the vegetative reproduction. The sexually by the different gametes. So usually they are sexually dimorphic in nature. That means the male and the female cone produced in a separate plant. So usually the male produces male cone produced in a male plant. That's generally they produce a male cones. The going to the structure of the male cone, it's a large conical or ovoid shaped in structure, and usually the compact and solitary in nature, and they are the short stalked structures. So usually it is developed in the tip of the axis in the center of the crown of the foliage leaves. So usually the male tree have the foliage leaves. In the center of these foliage leaves they produce the male cones. Further growth of the plant takes place by the formation of the lateral buds, thereby pushing the cone onto the outside. The new shoot apex soon takes place over the forming of the crown of the leaves and the scales, ultimately bearing another male cone. And the process is repeated. Ultimately they form a complete bunch of the cones. The male plant thus called as the sympodium in nature, and you will find an bunch like structure produces. And these male cones are generally referred as a microsporophyle. Micro means small, sporophyll, the spore bearing structure. The microsporophyle, nothing but the spore bearing structure in case of the cycas. So if you look at the structure, they are already told that they produce in a bunch like structure. And usually if you look at the single structure of this microsporophyle, that's a hard and they are horizontally flattened and woody structure in nature. Each is differentiated into proximal wedge shaped fertile portion and the sterile portion. The tip is a sterile portion, and the center portion of the axis, apart both the side, they will have a fertile region, and extension tapering into an upper curved apophysis region. Number of microspore born on these, especially the both the sides, they occurs in a group of 3 to 5 groups, and they are called as sori, and each sori converted by a hair called as soral hairs. And this is how the microsporangia is looking. The bone on the lower surface of the microsporophyll, and these are sessile, shortly stalked oval sac-like structure. It has a radial line diasis which helps in the dispersal of the spores. The microspores is rounded on the outer thick and exine and intine in nature. Next, going to the female reproductive structure, that's produced in a separate plant, that's called as a female plant. And usually cycas there does not occur the true female cone. That's why they are called as a megasporophyll. That mega means larger size, sporophyll, they produce a larger size structure. That is the female reproductive structure is generally referred as megasporophyll, and they are closely arranged at the acropetalous succession. They are spirally arranged. It develops only at the maturity of the plant and only once in a year. Each megasporophyll is flattened structure, and they are maximum up to the 30 centimeter in size. And it consists of the upper dissected or pinnated leaf portion, middle oval bearing portion, and the proximal petiole. So each bears a 2 row of opposite and sub-opposite regions, and 2 to 12 shortly stalked ovules produced on the each surface. So this is how the megasporophyll, and this is the tip, they bear the spill structure, and this is the megaspore, and in each megaspore you will find the 3 to 12 or 2 to 12 ovules will be produced in each structure. So this is the red color is the ovules they produce in the structure. So later these ovules is developed into a larger size. So usually the gymnosperm produce the largest ovule in the plant kingdom, and after the once the fertilization will be takes place, the zygote undergo to division. They produce the oospores, and usually the each ovule produce the oospores. They divide into 2 to 300 cells. These cells are central regions and disorganized to produce the cavity. The cavity is surrounded by the 2 to 3 layers of the cells. The cells in the lower region elongated very much to form a suspension region. The cells at the tip of the suspension develop into the embryo. The elongated suspension pushes the developing embryo deep into the prothallus region tissues, and prothallus is nothing but the primitive thallus structure. Actually the embryo will be formed. This tissue provide the nutrition to the developing embryo. The whatever the prothallus region is there, from that they will get the, because the endosperm is absent, the whole of the thallus is consumed during the development of the embryo. Some prothallus tissue persistence in the seed and in the form of endosperm, because there is no true endosperm occur in case of the gymnosperm. A thick pad of the tissue develop near the micropolar region, and it functions as a colorizia. These colorizia protect the radicle of the embryo. Ovules is transferred into the seeds, and embryo has a two cotyledons. Just like other plants, the cycas has a two cotyledons. They occupy the whole seeds. But as the gymnosperm, the seeds are naked in nature. That's why these seeds are germinate immediately. Cotyledons remain within the seeds on the germination. It absorbs the nutrient from the developing embryo. So this is how the actually the ovules will be formed, and these ovules is converted into embryo, and after that they is converted into a fertilized seeds, and from that seeds, so usually the germination will takes and produce the new plant. So this is how the complete general account on the structure of the male gametophyte and the female gametophyte, and development of the microsporophyll and megasporophyll, and formation of a ovule and development of the ovule. So this is how the complete and general account on the reproduction of the cycas. So usually the cycas in case of the gymnosperm produce the largest ovule in the plant kingdom. The male gametophyte produce the microsporophyll, and female plant produce the megasporophyll. Megasporophyll produce the spores, and microsporophyll produce the sperms. That is usually you can call as a pollen grains also. And these fuses to zygote. That zygote produced in a oospore region and develop into a ovules, and from that the usually the prothallus will act as a nutritive tissue, because the endosperm is absent in case of the gymnosperm or the in case of cycas, and they will act as a prothallus tissue development of the embryo. This embryo is developed into a seeds, and when the seeds produce, two cotyledons will be producers, and when the still the seeds is attached to the mother plant, that itself they will started to germination, and they get the nutrient from the developing embryos to the prothallus region. So this is how the actually the complete life cycle, reproductive biology and life cycle of the cycas will be takes place. So I hope you will got the concept of reproduction in the cycas, because it is simple concept, because mainly you have to be concentrate on the structure of the male gametophyte, that's the microsporophyll. In practical also we will study the structure of these microsporophyll, where actually the sporo, micro means small, sporo means spore producing structure. Phyllis means in the leaf. Here the male gametophyte is completely attached with the phyllis, leafy like structures. In the megasporophyll means there's a large size, actually the gamete will be produced in a specialized sporophylous region. So both male and the female produce in a spore bearing structure, that's a phyllis region, because they look like a leafy like flattened structure. So that's why megasporophyll and microsporophyll called, and ultimately the ovules is the largest ovule in the plant kingdom. So this is a complete account of the reproduction in case of the cycas. I hope you'll understand the concept of reproductive biology of the cycas. So in the previous slide we are discussed the general characteristic of the cycas, that's what is the morphology, anatomy of the root, stem and the leaf, and also the classification. In this video we have studied the reproductive structures and the development of reproductive propagules, and this concept. So in the next class we will study the another gymnosperm, that's a pinus. So I hope will understand. If you have any doubts, so you can clarify with the next video classes. Thank you.